The John Lebang Show has been known to make people laugh, sing, think, scream, throw things in rage, and generally lose their minds. Listener discretion is advised.
Worldwide and out to the greater universe, you're listening to the John Lebang Show.
Ladies and gentlemen, welcome back to another edition of the John Lebang Show. This month, we've got our good friend, Derek C Shelmerdine, joining us from across the pond, and we're going to talk about a lot of rock and roll firsts. Derek, how are you doing, sir?
I'm very well. It's great to be talking to you again, John. We got some great firsts that all happened in August, up and down the years.
And we're starting off with American Bandstand, huh?
That's right. I mean, there are a couple of great TV debuts. And American Bandstand, the national debut, was on the 5th of August 1957. And the Chordettes and Billy Williams were on that. And it was transmitted for the first time on ABC TV. Because before that, it was actually Bob Horn's Bandstand. It had been that for about 5 years. That was launched in Philadelphia on a TV station called WFIL TV on the 7th of October 1952. So it had been going for quite a while. But the clean-cut image of Dick Clark sort of joined the show in July 1956 when he took over from Bob Horn, because Bob Horn was sacked basically for too much drink and doing naughty things, models-related incidents, I've seen it described as.
Oh, he's the first Me Too'er then.
Yeah, exactly. And, I mean, the show itself was long-running for a music show. It went on till 1989, and Clark actually hosted it until the beginning of 99, when in season 32, he handed over to David Hirsch. But interestingly enough, I mean, the show itself finished at the end of that season, so it only ran for a matter of months after Dick Clark left.
Yeah, people identified the show with Dick Clark, and he was a man that really never aged through that whole time period. He really kept his looks about him, and he had a spunk that made him an icon in the music industry.
I mean, it's strange, really, because it was a very influential American TV show, and just about everybody who was anybody was on the show.
Yeah, but people identified with Dick. And it, you know, certain shows you just cannot replace the host, like the John Lebang Show. You just can't replace him.
Absolutely true, John. Absolutely. But there's another great first as well on this side of the water. On the 9th of August, 63, Ready, Steady, Go debut. That was one of the premier, or probably the premier, early middle 60s show, and it really was the place to be seen and to go to. And it had a great slogan. The slogan at the beginning said, "The weekend starts here." I mean, the show kicked off at early evening, around 6 o'clock on a Friday. And that was great. It was originally, the first issue was introduced by Keith Fordyce and David Gell. It had Billy Fury, who sadly never made much of an impact in America, but he was a very, very popular British singer, actually from Liverpool. And he was one of the first wave British rock and roll singers. And the other people who were on were Brian Poole and the Tremolos. Now, they're the people who actually beat the Beatles to the audition at Decca. They both auditioned on the same day, and Decca Records decided that they preferred Brian Poole and the Tremolos to the Beatles.
And does he have any really popular music that I would know?
They did covers of American songs, a lot of the early stuff. Probably not. I mean, they weren't that successful either. I think they had a couple of minor hits in the British invasion in 64, 65.
Interesting. It's funny when you look back on history and you see the choices these companies make and how wrong they were sometimes.
Absolutely. I mean, the Tremolos did go on to a reasonably successful solo career after they split from Brian Poole.
And the Rolling Stones appeared on there as well?
That's right. The Stones were on there in episode 3, and the Beatles, it wasn't until episode 9 that they were there. But the real star of the show was presenter Cathy McGowan. She joined in 64, and she was very much seen as the queen of the mods, because the whole opening credits, or a later set of opening credits, were very mod-based, with Parkers and Scooters and Union Jacks and the like. And the first set of music, though, was from the Safaris' Wipeout, which I think is a great tune. And that was actually recorded in PAL Recording Studios in Cucamonga. And that was the same PAL Studios that Frank Zappa bought. He worked there around the time of the Safaris recording, but in the summer of 64, he actually bought the studio as his first studio and called it Studio Z.
You're saying that's where he recorded a lot of his stuff?
Yeah, certainly in the early days. And he recorded a lot of other people as well, recorded a lot of doo-wop and all kinds of stuff there. What's interesting about Wipeout, I mean, it finally became a hit on the Dot label, and they put out an album called Wipeout with 12 tracks, but apart from Wipeout and its B-side Surfer Joe, all the rest of the tracks were actually recorded by the Challengers, but they don't get any credit anywhere on the album.
It's an entirely different group, is what you're saying?
Absolutely. They were, they weren't just a bunch of studio musicians, they were another surf group called the Challengers. But for whatever reason, they don't get any credit, because apart from those 2 tracks, it's essentially a Challengers album.
That's weird.
Absolutely,
you would think they would have stuck up for themselves and said, hey, give us some credit here.
Yeah, obviously they got paid enough, or they liked the exposure. But the Wipeout theme itself, come to begin the 64, was replaced by Manfred Mann's 5, 4, 3, 2, 1. I think that's a great song.
Yeah, definitely.
The Safaris and Brian Poole are still actually touring, but the Manfreds you can actually see on tour in the UK from the 9th of August to the 30th of November. And they've got some great original people there. You've got Mike Hug, Paul Jones, Tom McGuinness, and Mike Darbo, who replaced Paul Jones as the second lead singer.
So are they both doing the singing for the group?
That's right. They both appear. I think it might. If you look at their website, it says that sometimes the lineup may change. So it might be that sometimes Paul Jones is leading, sometimes Mike Darbo. But I know that some of the gigs they both go out together, which would be a great gig.
Yeah, it'd be interesting to see that.
Absolutely. And just a quick note here on the tours. All the links to the actual dates and venues and everything like that you can find on my website at www.rock'n'rollunravelled.com. So all the information there for anybody who really wants to check out the details of where to go and see these guys. It's all there. And
you're really great about putting out this information for the rest of us who, you don't have to do this, but it's a great little tool that you give us as consumers of music to go and find out who's touring right now, and maybe it comes to my town and I get to see somebody I didn't even know was coming unless I went to rock'n'rollunravelled.com.
Right. Yeah, it's interesting as well, and it's fascinating to see that just about everybody who goes onto the list, because I do keep a page of everybody who's on tour, so bands from the 50s, well, not so much the 50s, 60s and 70s, where they are now, and almost all of them continue to just add dates on, so nobody ever comes off the list, basically.
That is incredible, because all these people are 60-plus years old, 70 years old, 80. I'm not sure if they're 80s, but I mean, some of these people who are touring have been doing this for 50-plus years.
Absolutely. I mean, there are a couple of people on the road in this particular slot that we're going to be chatting about are in their 80s. Absolutely incredible. And legends as well. Absolute legends. But there's some great record labels as well who sort of kicked off in August up and down the years. On the 14th of August 1976, Stiff Records, one of the first real independent labels in the UK, great label, that had its debut single from its house producer, Nick Lowe. That was So It Goes. And it was founded by Jake Riviere and Dave Robinson, and very interesting label. But they had people like Motorhead, some of their early singles, and a whole range of different singles. But you can actually see Nick tour. It was one of the, he was the house producer and one of the stalwarts, really, of the label. And he's on tour in the USA and Canada from the 25th of September to the 11th of October.
So even he's busy.
Absolutely, absolutely. And Andrew Oldham, the Rolling Stones' second manager, in the 20th of August 1965, he decided to launch his own label, Immediate Records, and he launched it with 3 singles, which I thought was a great way to do it. Mm-hmm. And one of them was the McCoys' Hang On Sloopy, under license from Bang Records. One of my all-time favourite songs, I think that.
Hang on, Sloopy, Sloopy, hang on.
Fabulous song. We used to play that when I was in a group in the 60s. So a lot of fun to play as a drummer. And Fifth Avenue, The Bells of Rimney, a popular song, is actually produced by Jimmy Page. And that sort of saw the light of day back in 1958 with Pete Seeger, first recording. And it was Seeger who set the words of Idris Davis's 1938 poem to music. And I mean, Dylan or loads of people have recorded The Bells of Rimney, another great song. And a pre-Velvet Underground Nico, actually produced by Andrew Oldham. She released I'm Not Saying. And those 3 constituted the first 3 singles out on the Immediate label.
And they grew to be a much bigger label as time went on, especially having Jimmy Page produce one of the songs.
I mean, he did an awful lot of session work and stuff before he got involved with Led Zeppelin and the Yardbirds.
He had an extensive career before he was into Zeppelin.
Oh, absolutely. I mean, he's on dozens, hundreds of session singles. Loads of hits he actually plays guitar on. And he is one of the real talents, I think, to come out of certainly British rock music.
And the McCoys are on tour.
Absolutely. I mean, that's great to see. They're in the UK from the 3rd of August to the 6th of April 2019. So they're all over the place. And Motown's got a great anniversary on the 21st of August 1961. They released Please Mr. Postman, the Marvelettes, and it gave Motown its first #1. That was actually the Marvelettes' first single. And they came to the label, interestingly enough, through a high school talent competition. But they only came 4th, but somehow they managed to persuade the good people at Motown that they had potential. Motown recognized that, released Please Mr. Postman, and had their first #1, with Marvin Gaye on the drums, believe it or not.
That's incredible.
Please Mr. Postman was famously covered by the Beatles on With the Beatles in the UK and Beatles' second album in America. And speaking of Marvin Gaye, he also plays drums on Stevie Wonder's first single, released on the 16th of August 62. And that's got a great title. I Call It Pretty Music, brackets, but old people call it the blues.
That was his first U.S. single.
That's right. It grazed the charts, but he's on tour at the moment. So you can actually catch him across America from the 3rd of August to the 1st of September.
So it's a small 1-month tour. He's just getting in some gigs and making some money.
Absolutely, absolutely. And it's great to see Marvin Gaye playing on both of those songs. I think that's brilliant.
Yeah, I had no idea he was that in depth as a musician to where he was actually playing drums. Drums are one of the hardest spots in a band, and especially when you're talking about recording, because your timing has got to be so perfect. Yeah.
Yeah, he's a man of many talents, is Marvin Gaye.
Don't go anywhere now.
John will be right back right after this.
Yes, he will.
Check out the new book from Derek Shelmerdine,
Rock'n'Roll Unravelled.
It tells the story of rock and roll from its roots right up until the mid-70s punk.
Rock'n'Roll Unravelled.
Not just the